their fate unknown but presumed lost. Remaining teams report reaching primary junctions, Ryan finally announced. Setting charges now. Jack allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. Even if the Alliance forces were completely destroyed in the next few minutes, the operation would succeed in its primary objective. The Republic's prized Nippium heavy deposit would soon be inaccessible. Republic battlecruiser entering weapons range, Kevin warned. Energy signature indicates main batteries powering up. Evasive pattern Delta, Jack ordered. Prepare emergency jump coordinates. The Freedom's price lurched violently as its engines strained to execute the complex maneuver. On the tactical display, the massive form of the collective will dominated the battlefield, its weapons systems capable of obliterating the smaller Alliance vessels with a single concentrated barrage. Incoming transmission, Ryan reported with surprise, from the battlecruiser priority channel. Jack knew who it would be. Put it through. The tactical display flickered, replaced by the image of Samuel Voss. His brother's face showed the strain of command, but remained composed with the disciplined control that had always characterized him. Jack, Samuel acknowledged simply. I underestimated your audacity, if not your motivation. You were expecting us to chase shadows while you secured the real prize, Jack replied, matching his brother's professional tone despite the chaos of battle around them. I learned that tactic from you, if you recall. A flicker of something, recognition, perhaps even pride, crossed Samuel's features before the Republic commander reasserted control. Your attack is impressive but futile. Even if you damage the complex, the Republic will rebuild. Your rebellion is a footnote in history, not a chapter. We're not trying to write history, Samuel. We're trying to change it. Charges set at all 6 junctions, Ryan interrupted urgently. Detonation in 3 minutes. Extraction teams reporting heavy resistance. Samuel heard this, his expression hardening. You're willing to sacrifice your own people for this gesture. That's not the brother I knew. They volunteered, Jack responded, the weight of command heavy in his voice. Unlike the conscripts, your Republic works to death in radiation-soaked tunnels. What happened to you, Samuel? When did you become comfortable with atrocity? For a moment, something vulnerable showed through the commander's mask, a glimpse of the boy who had once stood shoulder to shoulder with his brother against schoolyard bullies and neighborhood thugs. I believed in order, Samuel said quietly. Instability, the alternative seemed worse. And now, after seeing what that order costs? Samuel didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, the main batteries are locked on your position. Your vessel cannot survive the barrage. I know, Jack acknowledged. But the charges will still detonate, the tunnels will still collapse, and the footage will still transmit. Footage? Jack allowed himself a grim smile. Every infiltration team carried recording devices. Every atrocity, every labor camp, every radiation-poisoned worker without protection, all broadcasting now to every system within range. Your Republic is exposed, Samuel, not just to us rebels, but to ordinary citizens who still believe the propaganda. The tactical display showed multiple communication beams emanating from the mining complex, the infiltration team's final act before the charges detonated, the truth weapon more powerful than any explosive. Samuel's expression changed subtly as reports doubtless reached him, confirming Jack's claim. The Republic built its control on information management as much as military might. This breach in their narrative was potentially more damaging than any physical attack. 2 minutes to detonation, Ryan reported. Extraction teams requesting emergency support. Jack faced an impossible choice. Attempt to rescue the infiltration teams at the cost of the entire operation, or withdraw to ensure the Alliance survived to continue the fight? Before he could decide, Samuel spoke again. Extraction Corridor Delta 7 is temporarily unmonitored, he said, his voice lowered as if concerned about being overheard. Security forces have been diverted to priority defense sectors. Jack stared at his brother in disbelief. You're helping us? Samuel's face returned to its professional mask. I'm making a tactical assessment regarding resource allocation, nothing more. A pause. 60 seconds until main batteries achieve optimal firing solution. I suggest you use them wisely. The transmission cut abruptly, leaving Jack with a decision that would define the rebellion's future. Transmit extraction coordinates to all teams, he ordered without hesitation. Route Delta 7, all vessels provide covering fire for withdrawal. The next moments passed in a blur of coordinated chaos. Alliance vessels executed precise maneuvers to draw Republic fire away from the extraction corridor Samuel had identified. 5 of the 6 remaining infiltration teams reported moving toward extraction points, fighting through diminished resistance as Republic security forces inexplicably redeployed to other sectors. 30 seconds to detonation, Kevin announced as the tactical display showed small transport craft emerging from the mining complex, the infiltration teams making their desperate escape. Begin withdrawal, Jack ordered. All vessels maximum thrust once teams are secured. The Freedom's Price shuddered under the strain as its engines pushed beyond safety parameters the extraction craft. Little more than reinforced life pods, docked with practiced urgency, disgorging teams of exhausted, wounded fighters who had accomplished the impossible. Final team reporting docking complete, Ryan confirmed. All surviving personnel accounted for. Execute emergency jump, Jack commanded. Now. The stars outside blurred as the Freedom's Price activated its modified jump drive. A dangerous maneuver this close to the asteroid's mass shadow, but their only chance of escaping the battlecruiser's weapons. As they made the jump, the final transmissions from the mining complex showed the detonation's critical support structures collapsed in chain reactions, sending shockwaves through the entire tunnel network. The prized Nippium heavy deposit disappeared, beneath tons of rock and metal buried beyond reach. But Jack's thoughts weren't on the tactical victory. They were fixed on his brother's unexpected choice, not quite redemption, perhaps, but a recognition of lines that even a Republic commander would not cross. 3 months later, Jack stood in the expanded command center of the Alliance's new base, watching as representatives from previously neutral systems discussed formal recognition of the rebellion. The mining operations' collapse had sent shockwaves beyond the physical damage, economic, political, and moral tremors that continued to undermine Republic authority. Most significant was the impact of the broadcast footage. Uncensored images of Republic atrocities had circulated throughout neighboring systems, igniting protests and defections that the committee struggled to contain. The narrative of benevolent collective order had cracked, revealing the brutality beneath. The Centauri Coalition is offering military support, Steve reported, joining Jack at the tactical display. Nothing official, but decommissioned vessels with experienced crews willing to join our cause. Jack nodded thoughtfully. And the Republic response? Contradictory. Public broadcasts claim the mining disaster was an industrial accident. Internal communications show the committee has executed 3 senior officials for failure, including Sector Commander Hayes. And Samuel? Jack asked, the question he had been avoiding for months. Steve's expression grew solemn. Removed from command immediately after the incident. Official status listed as reassigned to an unspecified position. The Republic euphemism could mean anything from actual reassignment to a labor camp sentence or execution. Jack had monitored all available channels for information about his brother's fate, but Samuel had simply disappeared from official records, as happened to many who fell from favor. Their last interaction remained a mystery that Jack couldn't fully unravel. Had Samuel deliberately created the extraction opportunity out of fraternal loyalty, or had it been a calculated decision to preserve some Republic assets rather than lose everything in the collapse? Perhaps both motivations had existed simultaneously in the complex calculus of loyalty and conscience. We received another transmission from the Saturn outpost, Steve continued. 23 more defectors, including 3 Republic technical officers with access codes to military communication networks. The defections had accelerated as word of the Alliance's success spread. What had begun as a desperate act of survival by 12 miners had evolved into a movement that threatened Republic control in multiple sectors. Jack turned from the tactical display to the viewport overlooking the hangar bay, where vessels bearing the Alliance insignia, a miner's pickaxe crossed with a pulse rifle, prepared for operations. Among them was a newly arrived ship with Republic lines but civilian markings, reportedly carrying medical supplies from sympathizers in the inner systems. "Something about that vessel," Jack said quietly, a familiar sensation prickling at his tactical instincts. Steve followed his gaze. "Intelligence cleared it, transponder checks out, and we verified the medical supplies." Jack nodded but moved toward the control station. "Run a deep scan on the communication system. Look for military-grade encryption modules." The operator complied, her fingers moving rapidly across the console. "Detecting anomalous components in the primary communication array. Definitely not standard civilian configuration." Before Jack could respond, the vessel's comm system activated, broadcasting on a frequency that hadn't been used since Jack's military service. A special operations channel shared only with select officers. "Alliance Command, this is incoming vessel requesting secure communication with Jack Reynolds. Authentication code Sierra Victor 749. Jack froze, recognizing both the code and its significance. SV-749 was Samuel's personal authentication sequence from their shared military past. "Verify life signs aboard that vessel," he ordered, tension evident in his voice. "Scanning. One life sign, human male, appears to be in medical distress, elevated radiation signatures consistent with exposure treatment." Jack made his decision instantly. "Secure the hangar, medical team on standby, full decontamination protocols. I'll meet the vessel personally." Steve looked alarmed. "Captain, if this is a Republic trap..." "Then I'm the one who should face it," Jack finished. "But I don't think it is." The next 30 minutes passed with excruciating slowness as the vessel completed docking procedures under heavy security. Jack waited in the decontamination chamber adjacent to the hangar, pulse rifle ready despite his instincts telling him it wouldn't be needed. When the vessel's airlock finally opened, a single figure emerged, thinner and more haggard than Jack remembered, moving with the careful deliberation of someone managing significant pain, but unmistakably Samuel. Republic radiation burns marked the left side of his face, the distinctive pattern caused by exposure to Nippium particles without proper shielding. His uniform had been replaced with nondescript civilian clothing, but he carried himself with the same military bearing that had defined him since childhood. "Hello, Jack," Samuel said simply, stopping at a respectful distance. Jack kept his weapon lowered but ready. "Authentication phrase." A faint smile crossed Samuel's damaged features. "The sun still rises in the east." The old resistance code their father had taught them before his disappearance. Jack exhaled slowly, lowering his rifle completely. "What happened to you?" "Official version or reality?" Samuel asked, the bitterness in his tone revealing how completely his faith in the Republic had shattered. "Both. Officially, I was reassigned to oversee the salvage operation at the mining complex. Unofficially, I was being punished for failure by exposure to radiation levels that would ensure a painful, prolonged death." He gestured to his scarred face. "The committee doesn't waste bullets on high-ranking officers. It makes examples of them." "And yet you're here," Samuel nodded slowly. "When your teams broadcasted footage of conditions in the mining operation, they included images of conscripts working without radiation protection. The Republic claimed these were propaganda fabrications. I was sent to disprove them by working safely in the same conditions." The cruel irony was characteristic of Republic retribution, forcing the failed commander to disprove allegations by becoming subject to the same abuse. "I managed to access a communication terminal during a medical treatment session," Samuel continued. "Contacted some former colleagues who had already defected. They arranged extraction and transport." Jack studied his brother, seeing beyond the physical changes to something more fundamental. The broken faith of a man who had given everything to a system that had betrayed its own principles. "Why come here?" Jack asked, the real question hanging between them. Why not flee to neutral territory? Samuel met his gaze directly. Because you were right. Because I watched men die from radiation poisoning while committee representatives calculated acceptable loss rates to maintain production quotas. Because I finally saw clearly what I had been serving. He paused. And because you're still my brother. The medical team waited expectantly, monitoring Samuel's deteriorating vital signs from a distance. The radiation damage was severe, potentially terminal without advanced treatment. Jack made his decision, stepping forward to support his brother as Samuel's strength visibly faltered. Get him to medical, he ordered the team. Priority treatment. Full security protocols until cleared. As they helped Samuel onto a stretcher, he grasped Jack's arm with surprising strength. I brought data, he said urgently. Command codes, defense protocols, deployment schedules, everything I could access. Jack nodded. We'll discuss it when you're stabilized. There's more, Samuel insisted, his voice weakening. The committee is developing something new, weaponized Nippium. They call it Project Sunrise. I only saw fragments, but it's... He coughed violently, blood speckling his lips. It's worse than anything we imagined. The medical team moved quickly, rushing Samuel toward the treatment center. Jack remained in the decontamination chamber, processing the implications of his brother's defection and warning. The rebellion had just gained invaluable intelligence and a symbolic victory in turning one of the Republic's commanders. But the mention of Project Sunrise suggested their fight was entering a new, more dangerous phase. As Jack left the decontamination chamber, he gazed out at the assembled Alliance vessels. What had begun as a desperate escape by a handful of miners had evolved into something greater. A genuine challenge to Republic authority. The brothers who had once been divided by ideology were reunited by recognition of a shared truth. Freedom demanded sacrifice, but oppression demanded more. The People's Republic of Free Worlds still controlled vast territories and resources. The Alliance remained outmatched in conventional military terms. But as the liberated conscripts, defecting officers, and independent systems rallying to their cause demonstrated, control through fear created its own vulnerability. Each act of resistance inspired others. Each exposed lie weakened the foundation of power. Jack thought of the Nippium heavy deposit, now buried and inaccessible. The miners had lost their discovery but found something more valuable. A cause worth fighting for, a future worth building. The rebellion had begun with the question of who would control the means of production, but it had become a battle for who would control the narrative of human civilization itself. As reports of new defections and uprisings reached the command center, Jack allowed himself to contemplate a possibility that had once seemed unthinkable. The Republic might actually fall. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually, collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions and cruelty, just as the mining tunnels had collapsed when their support structures were removed. The war ahead would be long and brutal. Project Sunrise loomed as an unknown threat. But for the first time since the Nippium discovery, Jack felt something beyond determination or resolve. He felt hope, genuine rational hope that the sacrifices were not in vain, that the murdered miners and radiation-poisoned workers and all who had suffered under Republic tyranny might eventually be vindicated. The sun still rises in the east, he murmured, his father's resistance code taking on new meaning as the Alliance prepared for the next phase of their rebellion. Beyond the viewport, stars burned in the endless night. Distant suns rising on worlds yet to be freed. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave it a like and to subscribe if you'd like to see more. Feel free to comment and share it as well. With all that said, go on and check out the video in the top left. I think you might like it.